Off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, home to the Asian Oprah, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, JioSaavn, and about 28 other platforms. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. So there's no gossip on the show, no scandal, no K words, no Kanye talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have topics and guests to that end. If you missed my great third interview with Dr. John Gray, mega best-selling author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus last week, as well as the Waltons, the Temptations, all my special series on all week, then please do go free subscribe on my YouTube channel where we are streaming live right now. You can also comment and ask questions. And today is a very special day because we're dealing with the topic that you saw in my promo. Fran Drescher came on early in my 11 years on the air, on camera now, to talk about how we can beat cancer. And at least one of my guests today is very familiar, has been a guest on her health summit. I was introduced to this esteemed panel that is coming on now by my client and friend, Teresa, who said, you're going to have these gentlemen on the show because they have great breaking research, empirically based tools and wonderful news about how we can beat cancer. So I'm going to introduce them now to you. Actually, I don't have the bios for one person, but I'll let him introduce himself. First, I have Mark Simon, the founder and director of Nutritional Oncology Research Institute, also known as NORI, that was established in 2011 as a cancer research center and a provider of nutritional support for cancer patients. Mark's background is clinical nutrition, nutraceutical product development, and is a certified plant-based nutritionist. Mark is also a certified holistic cancer coach. Dr. Robert Hoffman is president and chairman of AntiCancer Inc. and professor of the Department of Surgery at UC San Diego with 55 years experience in cancer research with over 1,100 publications and 52,283 citations. Dr. Hoffman is an editorial board member of Clinical Cancer Research, other places as well as anti-cancer research. And then we also do have special guest, Dr. Yutaro Kabata. I hope I said that right. And I'm going to let him introduce himself in a minute. But first, welcome to the show, all of my anti-cancer, NORI, and Hope for Cancer patients to my studio. Welcome, welcome. Dr. Utora, give me a little bit of what's going on. I see you have a lot of papers. So you're a researcher behind you. Just give me a little short bio as well, so I make sure I cover you.
Yeah, you tell her where you work in Japan and here.
I'm a medical oncologist in Japan, and I worked in University Hospital in Tokyo. And now I work at Dr. Hoffman's laboratory.
Wonderful. Are you familiar with Keiko Matsui?
Matsui Keiko.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. She's a jazz musician, and she's a friend of mine, and she comes on the show quite a bit. So
Yeah.
she's very recognizable in Japan. That's all I. Arigato. Oh, welcome to the show. And since we have so many people, we're going to forego my breakfast with Dr. Marissa. I usually start with a bite of my gratitude sandwich. And we go through 8 things that we're grateful for. So we start the show in the most positive way. But we're going to end the show with one thing that you are most grateful for. So we'll hold that because I want to make sure, since we have so many great people and experts on in studio today, to get to the subject at hand and get everything I can out of you this morning. So we're talking about many things and many research studies that have shown that there are ways that we can prevent cancer, which is what Fran Drescher came on to talk about. And then I had Chris Wark on, who is someone who had stage 3 or 4, I believe, of colon cancer. It was a while ago, but he used diet to actually, I don't know if the technical term is cure his cancer, but he has not had any kind of cancer since he did that. And Teresa told me that Mark, you are doing similar work and have helped her. So I want you to just kick it off now and tell me what we know now that we didn't know before. And then Dr. Hoffman, who is the founder of AntiCancer, which is a very interesting term that I'm also anxious to learn about how this all applies to us. And I'm hoping that you're tuning in. I see people already coming into the studio. Please feel free to put your comments. I see Debbie is commenting now, and I'll take a minute to read that. But please do kick us off, Mark, on what we need to know about cancer.
Okay, well, on the prevention side, I've been studying plant-based nutrition for quite a while. Hold on here. I have a little technical problem.
Oh, your sound is good.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my computer just went blank. It's back. So in studying plant-based nutrition, I came to the realization that we can prevent a lot of cancers through a healthy diet and lifestyle. That cancer is largely diet and lifestyle caused. Maybe up to 5% is actually genetic. And so I focused in a lot on creating an optimal diet and lifestyle for cancer prevention. And then on the treatment side, I've been looking at ways to optimize the diet through the treatment phase of cancer. And I came upon some research related to limiting the amount of an amino acid called methionine in the diet, which has proven to have profound effects on how well a cancer responds to treatment. And Dr. Hoffman has been studying this for 55 years. He discovered that cancer cells are addicted to this amino acid, methionine. So methionine is basically a building block of protein, right? And there's certain foods that have a lot of it, and there are certain foods that have very, very little of it. So we're able to create essentially a targeted dietary therapy, not necessarily to be used alone. In some cases, we've seen just the diet alone start to treat certain cancers. This is very, very exciting, breakthrough, revolutionary. If you look at oncology overall, they don't use diet at all. It's just not a part of, the standard of care. The oncologist will say, eat whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Well, that's not true.
Interesting. Dr. Hoffman.
Hi.
Hi. Chime in.
Okay. Well, there's many causes of cancer that we know about, and we know certain things we shouldn't do if we don't want to get cancer, or at least lower the probability. We shouldn't smoke. We shouldn't become obese. I think probably going toward a plant-based diet is beneficial. But there's still most things, we know some things, but we don't know a lot of things. So there's no guarantees, there's no certainty. Well, I ate so well and I kept thin and I don't smoke and I still got cancer. So a lot of people, that happens. So we don't understand a lot of things, but you can't go wrong in living a healthy way, and that will lower the probability of getting cancer. Okay. So
and let me just chime in with a statistic here. I knew when Fran came on, she had said the 1 in 2, 1 in 3, and I just wanted to make sure, because one thing that I do like to caution everyone is where you get your news. And I was very careful in making sure, when, and I'm addressing Debbie's concern right now, that, and she's absolutely correct, is that there are a lot of people who, just like any disease, will say, this is the answer, this is the only way to treat things, this is the only way that you're going to get better, this is the reason why. And that is rarely true. In fact, it is never true. There are many ways to treat things that we don't understand, but there is also the other side of empirical research. And I think that's the important thing. I think COVID has really given the whole medical community a hard time for things that are empirically proven and researched. And I think it's really important that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, that there are things that have been more statistically proven, maybe not 100%. I don't think there ever is 100%. So Debbie, I appreciate your comments. And at the same time, I do believe that it is smart of us to look at the research. And that's what we're doing today. So 1 in 3 right now, 1 in 3 men will develop cancer in their lifetime, 1 in 2 women. And this is in the US. That is an alarmingly high number. And as you were saying, Dr. Hoffman, that we don't know exactly why, right? We can't identify, oh, it's because you smoked. But the statistics show there's a higher rate of cancer in people who smoke that don't. So you'd be kind of not very smart to say, well, I'm going to beat the odds and I'm going to go smoke, right? So what we're doing now is looking at the research that Mark, his institute, has been doing since 2011, you said? That's a bit of time, looking at the link between diet and what did you say, starving cancer. So that is very important. Now, anti-cancer, that's a very provocative title. Why did you start this organization?
I started it almost 40 years ago, semi-randomly. I wish I had a good story and said, oh, it was this tremendous reason I started it. But this is back in the early 80s. Everybody was starting a biotech company. So I said, okay, I'm going to start a biotech company, and with some friends. So I didn't have such a good reason. it just seemed like a thing to do. And
Great.
the term anti-cancer, I kind of stole from a journal called AntiCancer Research. The founder and editor happens to be one of my best friends, but I stole the name. And so that's how that started.
Great.
And we, in the beginning, we tried to, we actually did develop a test where you can culture the patient's tumor in the laboratory in a dish, and then treat the cancer in the dish with the various drugs and try to find the drugs that perhaps work better. And test, that was the first thing we did. And the test is called the HDRA, and it's a long lot of technical words, don't need to know. And this test is commercially available in Japan. Sometimes it's easier to develop technology that helps cancer patients in Japan than it is here. So that's how we started. And then we started to put the tumors in mice in a proper way. The tumor from a pancreas was put in the pancreas of a mouse. This requires quite sophisticated microsurgery, but we developed these models where we call this PDOCs. You don't need to know all what the acronym is for. But this also is helpful, I think, for patients and for drug research. You can test drugs in these mice on the patient's tumor growing in the proper organ and see if they work or not. And after many, many years, we're getting some very nice correlation between the mice and the patient outcome. And we, of course, got very good correlations with our in vitro test in growing tumors in culture. Good correlation between drug response and patient outcome. And then we started to develop an enzyme that breaks down this amino acid methionine that Mark very nicely described, in which we found many, many decades ago that cancers are addicted to this amino acid. So
that's a very interesting and kind of it's a different way of looking at cancer, right? So that it brings it alive. It's almost like it's a living entity.
It's a living entity, Dr. Marisa, and this is an old story. We know the first experiments that showed that cancers at least require more methionine than the rest of the body was known in 1959. It was discovered by Dr. Sugimura, who became the most famous oncologist in Japan, but he made this discovery at our U.S. National Cancer Institute, that if you take away methionine from a rat that has a tumor, the tumors slow down more than if you take away other amino acids. So this phenomenon of methionine being essential for cancer growth and more essential for cancers than the rest of the cells in the body, we know for 64 years. And in the early 70s, we discovered not only do the cancers need more methionine than the normal cells in the body, they're addicted to it.
Wow.
So the idea, as Mark said, okay, you start with a diet low in methionine. It's not rocket science. Mark's website has a fantastic color-coded chart. It'll show you an apple has 1 milligram of methionine, and an equivalent amount of salmon, for example, or tuna has 750 milligrams or something like that. It's very shocking. But it's very hard to restrict methionine in the body only with diet. So we developed this enzyme over many decades, and we weren't the first to start working on this enzyme. It's called methionase. And methionase can break down this methionine, this amino acid that the cancers are addicted to. And there were many issues in developing this enzyme for patients. And it was initially developed as an injectable. And many years ago, we tested it in monkeys, and one monkey died. And this was very shocking and sad for us. And so many years we put this development of methionase on hold. And then in the lab, this messy lab that you see here, and the mess is all my fault. I have attention deficit hyperactive disease. That causes messiness. And Dr. Ching Hong Han, his family name Han, made one of the most important discoveries, that this methionase enzyme can be taken by mouth. You don't have to inject it. Even though it's a big protein, it can survive in the stomach and in the intestine. I mean, imagine if you could take insulin by mouth, but insulin cannot survive in the gastrointestinal system. But methionase can. The original gene for methionase came from a very tough bacterium that lives in the soil that can withstand great changes in acidity and temperature. We clone that gene into a simple bacterium that we can ferment and produce methionase. So this is and that's where we are now. We have this oral form of methionase that can be combined with a low methionine diet, and it has potential to help patients. Quite a few patients have taken it, about 150 or so, and there's maybe about 40 or so that are regularly taking it. These patients, almost none of them, are only taking methionase and on a low methionine diet. They're taking other things, so we don't want to make any big claims, but we're getting some very promising results of patients with very aggressive cancer living a long time beyond what would be predicted, including pancreatic cancer, children with brain cancer, metastatic rectal cancer. So I agree with your viewer, Debbie. I don't think there's such a thing as a cure for cancer. And it'd be really hard to prove it, because there can be cancer cells in the body just sitting there not doing anything for a long time and later start to grow. So I think the word cure for cancer is not appropriate. So that's where we are now. We're very much in the beginning. Our studies the technical term is anecdotal results. They're not clinical trial results, and we don't want to make any claims, but there's quite a few patients that are doing well, especially if they're on a low methionine diet, taking methionase, and various types of chemotherapy. Because when you restrict methionine in the body, we found in the laboratory anyway, over decades, that it's very synergistic with almost any kind of chemotherapy. And another group has just found it seems like it's even synergistic with immunotherapy. So anecdotal studies with the patients suggest we're seeing similar effects with them as we did in the lab over decades. But I must say, it's still early, and we don't want to make any claims.
Right. And I appreciate that. And I think that is the key, is anyone who is out there saying theirs is the only way, and this is everybody needs to do it because it's 100% will cure your cancer. Of course, that is someone that you want to stay away from. But the fact that this is research, it is new, but it is having some great results. And I know having Chris on.
It seems to be.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me go back to Mark. I did pull up your website before I take it off. I see that there's quite a bit of information. you've got the research-based, and your exposure and experience with people who have tried this. Talk to me about what's happening and how people, does it work for everyone? Tell me a little bit more about NORI and its work and its impact.
Okay, so we offer this as a nutritional support program for those who believe and want to incorporate diet within their treatment plan. So it's like integrative. So this is not offered as a treatment by itself. It's not. It's just to really effectively treat cancer, you need a lot of different tools all coming together at the same time, and they should be synergistic with each other, support each other. So even stress reduction, lifestyle changes and exercise, it's all important. And diet is really, really important. And restricting methionine is, Dr. Hoffman and I, we call it fundamental and foundational. Eventually we'd like to see every cancer patient adopt this tool within their overall treatment strategy, because it's very, very powerful and it's basic and important.
So I absolutely am of the opinion, and this is my BS, my belief system, that should you have cancer, and my auntie had it, I have many friends, many friends who have had it or have it. And when people ask me if I believe that there's one way, I'll say no. So I agree with Debbie as well. And at the same time, I believe that if there is hope, wherever there's hope, you go in that direction. So you're going to try, as you were saying, and what I like what you're saying is there's balance. Like, you're not going to go one just diet and forget all of the other kinds of treatment. You're not going to go just to, the traditional treatment. What harm is there of having a multiple pronged approach to rid your body of this living thing that is addicted by research to the kinds of I can't say it right, but the methionine. Thank you.
Methionine.
Right.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Now, Yutaro, you look young. I don't know how young you are, but you
tell your age. Tell your age.
I'm 44 years old. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's our Asian thing, I think. But why did you go into this area of research, and what has been the most surprising thing that you have found in working with Dr. Hoffman?
I had worked in Japan as a medical oncologist for about 20 years. And before I came here, I didn't care about nutrition. As Max says, most medical oncologists don't care about nutrition therapy, such as methionine. So after I came here, I think we should realize the importance of nutrition for cancer therapy. But in my opinion, patients should receive both of them, nutrition therapy and chemotherapy or standard of care.
Great. So that integrated, balanced approach.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Mark, if you could, the thing I wanted to point out too is both of you offer a free session on Zoom, right, on a regular basis for people who are interested to come and learn about this. Again, not because it is the only thing that matters, but it is information that can help. And so for me, of course, as a psychologist, I'm an organizational psychologist. I'm going to add, I think Mark or Dr. Hoffman talked about the importance of the mental mindset.
Yeah,
For
Mark,
me, that is so important. And so you can do all of the treatments, but if you don't believe that you're going to be helped, I think that is then it's almost futile to try anything. So the level of BS belief system that you can hold, that it is possible to beat cancer, it is possible to get well, and that BS is, I think, for me, one of the most important things, whatever treatment you're trying. So I'm going to ask you to support me on that. Or has there been research to show that your mental mindset on top of treatment is more effective than not?
Well, it's absolutely important. And the other thing is that this gives the patient the power and opportunity to be part of the treatment rather than putting it in the hands of the doctors. This gives the patient a huge amount of participation and control, in their healing. And that's through adopting, the right diet and lifestyle. So, it gives the patient quite a bit of power, which will give the patient hope and motivation, to move forward and fight it and overcome it.
Fantastic. Dr. Hoffman, it looked like you were going to comment.
Yeah, well, I'll give you just my opinion on the reverse. Okay. So, many patients tell us the doctor has told them they have 3 months to live or 6 months to live, and it becomes true because the patients lose all hope. So I think hope is, I don't know, it's a very strong medicine. And I cannot understand why the doctors often take away that hope. I understand end stage, so-called end stage, and the doctor says nothing more we can do. And if you really translate, that means there's nothing more that I know of we can do. And most oncologists that I am familiar with, and it's not that many, but it's some, the very large majority have no training about the role of nutrition in cancer or metabolism. In research now, the metabolic research on cancer there's somewhat of a renaissance. This started 100 years ago with Professor Warburg in Germany, Warburg or Berg. Now it's cycling back again more, but the doctors say if the oncologist says nothing more we can do, you should arrange your affairs. You have a few months to live. This is a horrible thing, and it's not necessary at all. So we hope and we try with the patients that are communicating with us, and this weekly Zoom, I think has helped many patients. And the biggest help on this Zoom meeting every Saturday morning is the patients helping each other. They support each other. They tell what they're doing. They tell what they think what they're doing if it's helpful for them. The patients encourage each other, really encourage each other. And we've had some of the new patients that are just despondent, and they hear from the other patients, there's something still we can do. No guarantees, no certainties, but we can try. There's a some of the patients are doing very well with their depriving their diet of methionine, restricting, I think is a better term, and taking methionase. So the patients encourage each other, and the patients often ask me questions. Well, what about this? What about that? I said, you'll get a better answer from the other patients. Ask them. They're the ones that are doing it. They're the ones who have their life on the line. Please ask the other patients. And this has given the newer patients hope and confidence. And so this to me is the great strength of this Zoom. It's Mark's Zoom. I'm a helper. And it's a great thing. And we have between 20 and 40 folks on. It's Saturday morning. It's kind of, we're on this West Coast time. It's not convenient for people in Japan who have to get up at 2 a.m, but some of them do it. So this is the point, the patients encouraging each other. This is the really most helpful thing.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute, and I recognize people who help and take what they know to help others. I think it's why we're on the planet, and that a lot of times the things that we go through that are not fun or that are dark sometimes help us help others. And those who also dedicate their lives to the research to help people who are going through something get what I call the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award. And I'd like to just take a minute and give Mark and Robert and Utaro Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award for the work they're doing to help cancer patients.
Come here a minute. The one, Dr. Marissa, can I introduce Dr. Han? This is Dr. Ching Hong Han.
Hello.
He's the man who discovered you could take methionase by mouth, and without that, the patients maybe could do it in injectable methionase maybe in another 10, 20 years. So he made the really big breakthrough. Ching Hong Han, that's him right there. He's a very modest man. But he did a great thing. And
that's wonderful.
He produces methionase here at AntiCancer for all the patients by himself.
Wow.
Of course, we wish we had a little more help, but that's him.
That's wonderful.
You met a great man.
That's wonderful. Did you, you also were included, you get the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award for the work that you're doing. We'll give him a little bit of applause too. I'm all about appreciation.
May I spell his name for you? Maybe you could put it on.
Sure.
So his first name is Ching Hong. So it's Q I-N-G-H-O-N-G. That's his given name. And his
now, is he also a doctor?
He's an MD, a real doctor. And his family name is Han, H-A-N.
Wonderful. Does he speak Mandarin?
Yes, of course.
Oh, well.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
All right. Well, he'll say, when he comes back here, he'll say hello to you in Mandarin.
Wonderful. All right. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about cancer that your field and looking at this addiction that cancer has to a specific protein that
amino acid,
right?
Which
yes.
make up proteins.
Okay. And so let me just recap. If you've just tuned in and you're wondering who's in my studio, I have a plethora of researchers here. They are all interested in the same thing, which is helping cancer patients do what they can and participate in their own treatment, in their own healing, in an area called diet, because the the newer research is showing that cancer has an addiction to a particular amino acid, and by taking an enzyme that breaks that amino acid down and restricting the amounts of foods that carry that amino acid, help shrink tumors, help you beat cancer. And that's why they're on my show today. How did I do for learning something? How accurate did I do?
Great. You did great. And I'm just going to add one thing, is that I think in the majority of cases, just restricting methionine by diet and methionase, maybe for some relatively non-aggressive cancers, it's helping people. But if there's an aggressive cancer, I think it's very important to include the chemotherapy that's been shown to work the best for that particular cancer, along with methionine restriction, and to get synergy. It's possible in the lab over the decades, we've shown synergy with methionine restriction for every kind of chemotherapy. It seems to be the case so far in the clinic, but it's very, very early, and the studies are all anecdotal. But I strongly recommend the patients with aggressive cancer get the chemotherapy that their oncologist recommends, and then they can augment it with restricting methionine, and there's no side effects from lowering methionine in the body.
That was my next question. Thank you.
Because between the diet and oral methionase, it seems it's not possible to get below the requirement of the normal cells. Maybe if we were injecting methionase into the blood circulation, we could get a very low level of methionine that would cause some side effects, some anemia. We saw some anemia in the monkeys years ago. But the oral methionase and the diet will not cause side effects. People need to watch if they're losing weight, they need to moderate their diet a little bit, take some moderate foods with moderate amounts of methionine. The chart on Mark's website is a Bible. They can see every kind of food. It's color coded. You need a little bit more calories, but still want to moderate still want relatively low methionine. There's your chart. And you can cheat a little bit if you're taking methionase, because it'll break down the extra methionine in your body. So actually the chart's on another Mark's website. It's how to starve cancer naturally, all one word, no space.com. And there's a number of pages. One page will say methionine chart. I think every cancer patient should look at this chart. There is no downside on being on a low methionine diet. If you put a rat on a low methionine diet that's healthy, it lives another 30% in lifetime. So, and it doesn't get obese. It doesn't get diabetes. So, a low methionine diet is a great lifestyle for everybody: cancer patients, normal people, obese people. There's no downside. It's a very healthy lifestyle. Not this one.
Not this one.
Dr.
Okay.
Marisa, it's you got to put the word naturally at the end. Okay. Everybody's starving cancer. The website's da. But Mark's website is very special. How to starve cancer naturally. Get that little naturally at the end. No spaces between the words, and you'll see different pages. And one will be methionine. Sorry, I can't even say the word methionine.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
And if you go to the methionine chart page, Dr. Marisa,
there it is.
You'll see this chart, and it's a Bible. Everybody should read this chart for good health. There it is, color coded.
Great.
Yeah,
Now, when are we going to get to the point where it's not anecdotal? Are you working on quantitative studies versus just qualitative studies?
Okay, this is a great question.
Thank you.
So of course,
You
our
can tell
study,
PhDs.
Well, you know, PhDs.
Yeah, you know what it stands for?
Poverty,
It stands
hunger,
for piled higher and deeper.
hunger and despair. So poverty is a problem. So clinical trials are hundreds of millions of dollars. Somebody's got to pay for that. Our studies are quantitative. Every patient we study quantitatively. Their blood markers, the size of their scans, but the ultimate clinical trial is a phase 3 clinical trial. It's called a randomized trial. It will have the patients will be divided by a statistician very scientifically into a treatment group and a placebo group. You need hundreds of patients for such a trial. You probably need hundreds of millions of dollars, a huge amount of money. So when are we going to have this for methionine? I don't think in my lifetime. I'm 79 years old. I don't have time to stop what we're doing and hope in the next 10 or 20 years we can do such a trial. So I'm sorry, Dr. Marisa, I don't see this in the current time frame. The pharmaceutical companies are not interested in methionine. It's not going to get the billions of the drugs that the pharmaceutical companies invest in. It's just not.
Why?
Oy.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean,
Well,
this is okay.
You're right.
So let me just put the moose on the table. Okay, so that's my Canadian version of talking about the elephant in the room. All right. So
Yes.
I've heard that there are natural cures to cancer, and because it threatens the billion-dollar industry of pharmaceuticals and or chemotherapy and or the traditional ways in which people think this is the only way to cure cancer, the Western, this is the only way that we know medical approach, that there's actually people being killed who stand up and say, no, you can actually cure, maybe not cure, but you can beat cancer or at least live a cancer-free life in remission if you have your diet or whatever other natural solutions there are. And I know that Fran Drescher goes on a limb with her Cancer Schmancer site and actually will say you can't cure cancer, but you can prevent it. So is there any truth to all of that conspiracy theory, so to speak? Please comment on that.
May I comment? I've dealt with this for decades. I don't think there's a conspiracy. And I don't think the pharmaceutical industry is threatened by any of this. It's just it's just not in their interest. The pharmaceutical companies are companies. They want to make big money. Okay, that's what they do. Companies want to make big money. I get it. So they're not threatened by any of this. And there is no cure. There is no way. We don't know enough. We don't know nearly enough about even saying this word cure. So they're not threatened by in my opinion. They're out to make big money. Way back when I first started in the early 70s, when President Nixon made the war on cancer, the best-selling drug was a drug called adriamycin. The scientific term is doxorubicin. We don't need to know all that. It was $125 million a year. And that was a bestseller for a long time. And then as the decades went, the cancer drugs became very expensive. And now you have immunotherapy drugs, for example, Keytruda. The last year's income for Merck on that drug was $24 billion.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so they're not threatened by any of what we do. They're just
Got
not interested. They're not interested. Are you going to make $24 billion a year on methionase? And
Mhm.
the drug companies, they compete with each other, but they follow each other. It's women's fashion or men's fashion, whatever. And what's fashionable is maybe the peak is a little bit over, immunotherapy. Huge money, and all the oncologists prescribe it. And the oncologists do well. They're the only doctors that can sell the drugs. They're the only doctors allowed to be pharmacists. So they get a huge cut of the drugs that they prescribe, and they go for it. Everybody's making out. But
This is definitely the dark side.
cancer patient is not in this equation.
Yeah, yeah. Mark, please chime in here. We've got 3 minutes left, and you've been very patient. And I know, but we could probably do a whole day on this, and we'll definitely have you back. But Mark, please, your views.
That would be great to have us all back. My views are this: is that it's time already that oncologists, instead of telling their patients, and I hear this all the time, the patient will ask, well, what should I eat or not eat? And I say, it doesn't matter. And we're going to put you through chemotherapy. We don't want you to lose weight. So you can eat steaks, you can eat ice cream, whatever you want. This is so common. And I find that very upsetting when we know the diet can be a hugely important tool and help the process.
I see here animal products are a big methionine.
You got to go. So at a minimum, I recommend to, all cancer patients, or if you're in remission, go plant-based. Go on a healthy, low-fat, plant-based, whole foods diet. This will go a long, long way. If you're in treatment, we can help you take this plant-based diet and turn it into a therapeutically, targeted diet. And we could add methionase. And you've probably incorporated the most powerful tool you can in your treatment plan.
Yeah, beautiful.
This is basic.
Can I tell you something from the New York Times yesterday?
Yes, please.
Can you see this?
Sort of. Go ahead and read the headline for me.
Headline. This was in New York Times yesterday. Wait and watch urged in more prostate cases.
Wait, what?
And watch. Wait and watch. No treatment. Just wait. Wait for the cancer to grow. So this was in the Science Times of the New York Times yesterday. This is the new way for the men who are diagnosed with prostate cancer.
To not do treatment at all.
No. Okay, I can see no standard treatment. Why not go on the diet that Mark has outlined so nicely in the chart? Why you have to wait and watch means just wait and grow. Go on it. And actually, for prostate cancer, we know diet is important since Dean Ornish discovered this decades ago. So this is people are given the wrong advice.
Yes. And we are out of time. I'm going to have to close off. But thank you so much for sharing this information. If you know anyone with cancer, please have them go and join in on the Zoom, the free Zoom every Saturday for more information. You have 2 websites that I've put up. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming out.
Thank you, Dr. Marisa. Thank you for all the great work you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, tune in tomorrow for Straight Talk with Sam Wars. We're giving away tickets to the Cerritos Center for Performing Arts, to the Magic Show, and to Big Daddy Voodoo tomorrow here on Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marisa, because it's all about balance. Peace in. Can you do this with me? Peace in, peace out. World peace through, inner peace. Now go and have the best day ever.
Thank you.